Morning, everyone. I thank you all once again for joining me for our morning day texts. As you know, we meet between 6:30 and 7:30 every weekday morning, unless otherwise scheduled. If something comes up and I can't make it, I'll put a notice. But pretty much we meet every weekday morning and Saturday morning. Saturdays, I try to set it a little bit later, between like 7 and 8. But pretty much we get going around those times, 6:30 to 7:30 during the week, and then between 7 and 8 on Saturday. And if you don't want to have to try to figure out exactly what time, just subscribe, hit the notifications, and then when we go live, you'll be instantly notified. And then whether it's 7 or 7:30, you can just wait until you see the notification. That's the easiest way to stay on top of the day text, or just watch the videos when we're done with the live stream. But if you want to participate or be involved while we're doing the show, then just try to set yourself a reminder. We also do Sunday shows. This Sunday we will be doing what we call open session, where pretty much I just start off a live stream with one or two topics, and then we go into your questions either about those topics or whatever. But I start the show off with at least one topic so we can get going. But then it's pretty much just an open forum. And then sometimes we'll do a more structured show like CW Jaw Talk. We've done 20 of those. We will resume the CW Jaw Talk series again soon. And those are live streams as well, where you can join us. We actually start the show before the show officially starts and do a little association. And then once the show's done, we hang out for a while and talk. So there's a lot of opportunity to join us and get involved, ask questions that are important. We try not to ask the same questions over and over again, unless you just haven't asked them before, right? But if you have and you've gotten an answer and you already know what's going on, try to pick something else, okay? Let's try to grow. Let's try to become more than we are already. And we're not going to do that by repeating the exact same ground over and over again. But sometimes in these readings, the same subjects do come up. So that's okay. We can talk about the same things when they come up, or if there's a critical issue. It's just this random involvement. I say random because we could have a planned show about texts that have nothing to do with one subject, and then out of nowhere, we'll get someone who wants to talk about something totally different. So I may just ignore things like that, or we're not going to get distracted is my point. So we encourage you to stay focused on what the material is that we're considering that day, or the subject, so that we can get the most out of each show. All right, so we're in Revelation, and as those of you who've joined me regularly know, we work our way through the various biblical books and letters, as well as other related texts and histories, to try to better our knowledge and understanding of the God Jah, the one whom we believe he sent, Jesus Christ, or Jesus of Nazareth, the Christ, or Messiah in our view. We realize other people have different views. This is our view. So we're teaching you the things that we have come to believe, so that you understand where we're coming from and why. Or if you're like me and already a Christian, you'll know or be able to discuss better with other people the things that bind us together in our faith. So the Revelation is a series of visions given to John, whom many believe to be Jesus' earliest, one of his earliest followers, beloved disciple, who wrote the great message or gospel. And so whether that's the case or not, the fact is that the revelation was given to Christians to teach them things that were said to come from God through Jesus, so they would know what to do. And remember what Jesus taught. We don't know anyone from history as far as whether or not they really wrote these things. But that goes for everything from history. Yet we take the veracity or the things that we can show are true from the things that were written by those who observed them, so that we can have some measure of confidence through our verification of the things that are said. When it comes to Revelation, we're learning more about the Christian groups, the things they were dealing with. Obviously, when it comes to prophecies and visions, those aren't the kinds of things we can test the same way as like historical locations and stuff. Although there are things in the text that help us to date the information being given. But I'm trying to give you a little bit of context so as we read these things, you'll understand, oh, okay, This is a series of visions Christians believe were given to early Christians by God through Jesus. So we consider these things so that we understand the difficulties they were going through, and then we can determine if we're going through some of those same things today. And then if so, we can look at the advice that was given to these early Christians and how they dealt with it, or how were they told to deal with it, to see if we can do the same today. So let's go ahead and start reading. We're going to begin in verse 17 of chapter 2. And what I've been doing, since these messages are written to different gatherings of Christians, and so they're each in the reading that we're doing now, kind of like a section of information to each group. But what I'm doing is I'm trailing one verse from the prior reading, which applies to the previous group of Christians mentioned. And then after we read that one trailing part from the prior reading to the other Christians, we go into the message to these other Christians, like the Thyatirians, that we'll get to in verse 18. But we've already been reading messages to the Ephesian Christians and the Smyrna Christians. Okay, and so the last thing he says to the Smyrna Christians, verse 17, is the one possessing an ear must listen to what the Spirit says to the gatherings of Christians. To the one who prevails, I will give the manna which has been kept secret, and I will give to that person a white stone, and upon the stone a brand new name has been written, which no one knows except the one receiving it. Now you might want to, so does no one here mean like not even God? See, so sometimes the Bible speaks in all-inclusive ways, as if there's no exception, right? And there are exceptions. This is a regular way in which the Bible speaks to show completeness in ways with understood exceptions. For example, the one who actually gave the one receiving the stone the name would know the name, unless God just somehow does some random process that even he doesn't get involved with, like the way Adam named the names. He knew the range of possible names, right? He created the vocalic expression possible within Adam and the spirit within him that would react to these animals as he brought them to him and speak their names. But it doesn't indicate that he knew which name Adam would assign to each different creature. He knew the full range of possible names because he made them, but he made Adam and brought the animals to him so that he would see what Adam would call them. That's what the text says. And that's a good way to show the knowledge of God and the way that he can and does know all things, but allows things to occur in accordance with his will in order to see what will take place. And so I bring that up here only because it comes up often in relation to texts like this, where it makes an all-inclusive statement, but with an obvious exception. Again, unless we're going to argue that it's something similar to the naming of animals, in terms of the name we received here and sort of the process God would use. Either way, that's not the most important thing. It's just something to consider when we deal with texts that make certain statements like no one else or nothing else, and when there's obviously something else. It's just the way the Bible writes and speaks at times, or the Bible writers describe things. So these are the things that Christians who prevail. Remember, we've been talking about that word several times. It's come up, and how that's different from just belief. You have to actually finish what you started. You have to conquer and prevail. You don't have to be perfect, or we would all fail. But we have to keep going. We are not to give up. We must endure to the end. Matthew 24:12. So if we do that and we prevail, just like 17 says again here, right? We have ears, but do we listen? If we do, we prevail and we get the secret manna. We get the white stone with the brand new name as we become a new creation in the future. All right, now let's start the message to the Thyatiran Christians. Verse 18, we're going to read 18 through 23. To the messenger of the Christians gathered in Thyatira, you must write, the Son of God, the one who has eyes like the flame of fire, whose feet are like burning bronze, says these things. Okay, here's Jesus talking through angels who are communicating on his behalf to John and through him to the Thyatiran Christians. Verse 19. I know about your works, your love, your belief, your help to others, and you did not give up. What did we just talk about? Also, your most recent works are more impressive than what you did earlier. Verse 20. However, I'm holding against you the fact that you accept the woman Jezebel, the one talking about herself as a prophetess, even as she teaches and deceives my servants to live open, obviously immoral lives and to eat foods offered to idols. I allowed her a period of time to change her belief, but she is unwilling to turn away from her open, obviously immoral life. Watch then, verse 22, as I put her down with sickness or throw her down on a stretcher, and as I put those having sexual relations with her into great distress, unless they change their beliefs about her works. Verse 23, her children I will destroy in death. All the gatherings of Christians will know that I am the one searching thoughts and hearts, and I will give to you each according to your works. Not according to your faith, although that would have to be there for the works to be there, right? He specifies you must have works. You've got to do stuff. You've got to show you believe. We've got people here who are stuck in debates and ask questions over and over again. They help no one. They don't believe. You are going to be judged according to your works. You better have more works than debating with other people who claim to believe. It's not going to be enough. Now let's take a look at these descriptions here about the Thyatiran Christians and what they were dealing with. So verse 19, he knows about your works, your love. He's watching us. He's watching us just like he was watching the other Christians. And he can tell when we're doing what we should be doing, or if we're doing as we did before in ways that he needs us to do more now, because there are more people who need us. And even if we are, according to this, there can be problems. And these Thyatirans were tolerating the woman Jezebel. So as we know from the biblical accounts, Jezebel was a terrible queen. She was someone who helped suppress the worship of Jehovah and raise up the worship of Baal and Asherah. These false gods who people are worshiping today, oh man, they're sacrificing each other to these gods all over again. It's terrible. I mean, you compare the things that the people who worship Baal or these other false gods and goddesses have to do, and then you compare that with Jah and the things he asks us to do through his son to treat others the way we want to be treated. I mean, it's so incredibly different. Yet we have Hollywood and these other sick groups and organizations promoting the worship of Baal all over again. They're devolving, going backwards. So much for science, right? At least they're in the spiritual realm, but they've retarded themselves so badly. They're going all the way back to Baal. It's just amazing and dumb. And they worship these false gods and goddesses for what? Nothing. They get nothing except a fast track to death. They sacrifice their own family to these idiotic gods and goddesses whom Jah and his prophet Elijah defaced and humiliated when they destroyed the prophets of Baal and the prophets of Asherah after they were humiliated by Elijah and by the god Jah. Baal is a disaster, a catastrophe. He's one of the worst gods you could ever possibly come to know. And yet we have people like Lady Gaga and all these retarded Hollywood people promoting Lucifer and Baal and all these false Babylonian gods and goddesses. It's disgusting. It's one of the sickest things we could possibly have thought would happen today. I mean, and this is all tied in with the Clintons, the Podestas, Obama, all these sick, disgusting Democrats and liberals who use politics as a means of promoting homosexuality, child sacrifice. Look at the Podesta emails and Hillary and their promotion of these false gods and child abuse. Look what's happening to Epstein right now. All these people are together. And this abortion catastrophe has just fed right into the false worship of Baal. So you had Jezebel tolerating the worshipers of Baal, suppressing the worship of Jehovah, and persecuting people who were following Jah. And so, of course, she was punished to an extreme, deservedly so, utterly humiliated and destroyed, as every single worshiper of Baal will be. I mean, it's incredible. So you have a horrific person like Jezebel who couldn't stop throwing makeup on her face like so many women today, so much so that she put on her makeup right before they threw her out the window. And she smashed into the ground below, was trampled on by a horse, and eaten by dogs, so that only her skull and her hands and her feet were left when Elijah said, "Bury that bitch." Oh man, she was a horrible, rotten piece of garbage. And every single person who follows after her today is the same way. You women who are considering abortions and sacrificing your children, or who are tolerating other people who do those things, that's disgusting. You're killing your unborn child just because you couldn't control your sexual desires and have sex with someone you actually wanted to reproduce with? I mean, people today, they're throwing away life just so they can stuff a few more minutes of pleasure into their bodies. Like this disgusting, horrible woman Jezebel. They killed people who served Jah and took down the altars to Jah for Baal. It's disgusting. And every single person who tolerates Baal or any one of his worshipers today is also disgusting. We have Christian churches today that use things that are associated with Baal, like the word Lord. They replace the divine name in the Bible with the word Lord. That's what Baal means. Lord, owner. And while it's true that Jah and Jesus are lords, why would we replace the divine name with a name or title that is the same as Baal? It's disgusting. So we have to make a stand. We have to do what Elijah did and throw that woman out the window. Let her be destroyed. If she does not stop influencing Christians today wrongly by sacrificing children, by having abortions, by living open, obviously immoral lives, homosexuality, lesbianism, all these retarded sexual practices that are as backwards as you can believe, because they actually use the opposite of what we're supposed to use for sexual activity. That's why they're mating with human waste and using the anus instead of the vagina. That's disgusting. Yet it's promoted like normal. How's that normal? Why isn't that an issue today? I hear so many people say it's not about the sexuality, it's not about them being gay. Oh, yes, it is. How is it not about that? Exactly what is it about then? They're just afraid. They're cowards. And they refuse to stand up and confront this disgusting generation of people who are aborting their babies, allowing their women to act like men, and men acting like women. That's over. Okay, that day is done. And as long as there are still people acting that way, I realize people will continue thinking that it's ongoing. It's over. We're here and we're not stopping. And we're going to carry the spirit of Elijah all the way to the end until that woman Jezebel stops doing these disgusting things, or she is once again thrown out the window and eaten alive by dogs. Maybe she wasn't alive after being stomped on by that horse, but she was one of the most disgusting and horrible people ever to live on this planet. And anyone who follows in her path, you are going to get the reward that she got. You want a prophet's reward? You're going to have a prophet's death. You want to have a death like Jezebel? Live like Jezebel. And that's exactly what you'll get. Change your beliefs. Verse 21, we have a period of time. But if people don't change and you keep doing these things and you keep aborting babies and you keep promoting women with more makeup on their face than a clown, and you keep acting like they're equal to men, then you're going to be destroyed. This is a warning example of what happens when you let these disgusting, horrible, non-Jah worshiping women take the lead in establishing these things. Okay, most all of them. They don't act like women, and they get men to not act like men. They're just like Satan in resisting the way they were made, right? They strike me as that way, these disgusting, horrible women like Jezebel, because they refuse to follow the way they were made. Same with these horrible, rotten men who keep using their rear end as a sex organ. You're just you're destroying yourself. There's nothing beneficial about those disgusting practices. The day someone tells me one benefit of dressing up like a clown, wearing that much makeup, or blowing up your rear end with sex, or two women somehow trying to work things out, the day someone explains to me the benefit from that, just one, by the way, I'll talk about it, because there are none. None. They're artificial and fake. So, hopefully I've made that clear how I feel about these things. Look at how he feels about it. Verse 22, watch as I put her down with sickness. In other words, put her on a stretcher. He's going to knock her out. This is Jesus himself saying, I am going to knock her out. This bitch who keeps destroying my congregations and damaging Christians, just like that horrible, rotten slut Jezebel, I'm going to knock her out. And they're going to have to carry her off on a stretcher. So if you decide you want to be around this disgusting, horrible woman, Jezebel, and you want to act like her, you're going to get knocked out too. Not by me, but by the one who's coming to you. And if she doesn't knock it off soon, it's not just her that's going to go down. Her children will be destroyed. All of her false worshipers of Baal, all of these idiots today who are worshiping Lucifer, they're going to be destroyed if they don't knock it off. At the very least, they better stop messing with us. They want to destroy themselves and pump each other full of human waste, go for it. You keep messing with Christianity, and you keep trying to damage our reputation and our work, you're going to be thrown down on a stretcher and knocked out. And all your children are going to be destroyed.